Ladies, gentlemen, young people, and honored guests, as Executive Director and Curator of the Historical Society of the Towananda, it is my great privilege to welcome you to this gathering on the banks of the historic Old Erie Canal to commemorate the ceremony known as the Wedding of the Waters. However, this is not the first gathering here to celebrate that great event. Let me briefly describe an earlier gathering that occurred here on October the 26th, 1825, as related in a copy of a letter written by Daniel C. Jacobs to the Tonawanda Herald newspaper on October the 26th, 1887. And printed in that newspaper. Here is the letter, and I quote, to the editors of the Herald. Today is a most notable anniversary in the history of the Empire State. 62 years ago this date, the Erie Canal was formally opened. Upon its bank in Tonawanda, where the New York Central Railroad Bridge now spans it. Excuse me for a minute. It's right in front of the bridge over to my right. A salute was fired from a cannon as the packet boat Seneca Chief, drawn by 9 handsome gray horses, passed through here on her initial trip, having on board no less distinguished a personage than DeWitt, Governor of the state of New York, with his staff, who conveyed a keg of water from Lake Erie to mingle with those of the Hudson River. It was a grand event and one never to be forgotten. Among those who manned the guns that come to my recollection were Messrs. Benjamin Carr, Oliver Carr, Samuel Simelton, Henry Barnes, and others. It was about 10 a.m. of October the 26th, 1825, and the event will not soon be forgotten by those who witnessed it. The query naturally arises, how many of those persons still survive? I can name several. John Simpson, James Carney, D.C. Jacobs, E.V. Day, Samuel Barnes, and William Sweeney. I can well remember that on that same day I hauled 4 barrels of apples from Niagara Falls to Tonawanda, 2 of which were shipped to New York City on the packet boat William Vanderbilt, consigned to the mayor and common council of the metropolis to the compliments of Honorable Augustus Porter of Niagara Falls, and 2 to the mayor and common council of the city of Albany. This shipment was the first in the United States by way of the waterway that has since become so famous throughout the United States. End of quote. Signed by Daniel C. Jacobs. Now, like all great worthwhile projects, it was at first derided, made fun of, and was referred to as Clinton's Ditch, Clinton's Valley, Clinton's Gully, and was even referred to as that damn fool dig. That earlier gathering, 166 years ago, celebrated the opening of this great canal. This opening, and this gathering today, celebrates the start of a program to keep this great canal in operational condition. I again offer to you who are now standing on the old towpath of the old original Erie Canal, and in front of this historic old long homestead, a gracious welcome from the Historical Society, and the hope that this gathering will be as successful in its endeavors as the first gathering. It is now my great pleasure to introduce to you our first honored guest, Senator John B. Shepherd II. John?
Thank you and good morning. I'm delighted to welcome you as well and to thank you for coming. There are several important purposes to this ceremony this morning, some of which Mr. Dittmar already referred to. At the top of the list is simply the fact that this is the opening of a 2-week-long journey through the state of New York, through the canal and down the Hudson River to New York City that will end on October 26th with the ceremony in the New York Harbor reenacting Governor Clinton's wetting of the waters in 1825, as Mr. Dittmar indicated. And to begin this effort and this journey in the Towanandas is certainly a fitting thing to do, both geographically and psychologically, because of the importance of the Towanandas and Western New York and the Buffalo and Niagara Falls area in the history of the canal. Secondly, it's an important educational effort, and all along the canal throughout the breadth of New York State, we have notified school districts and chambers of commerce, and are particularly looking forward to school classes from along the whole length, joining the flotilla at the different stops and learning not only of the importance of the history of the Erie Canal and its tributaries, but the importance that the canal can have in the future of New York State, as well as our past. Lastly, there is an important initiative going on right now in New York State where all of our residents will be voting on November 5th on a new initiative to do with the canal. And although the two are not directly related, they both pertain to the canal, and we're very happy that there's such attention and focus on this important effort that can have such a huge impact on the future of the state. I'm privileged to chair the Senate Tourism Committee. We also have here the chair of the Assembly Tourism Committee, who will speak in just a few minutes, focusing exactly on that initiative that's being pursued in Albany and throughout the state right now. I'd like to do several introductions, but more will be done as the program continues, either by me or others who are speaking. This wetting of the waters effort wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the initiative and thought and very hard work of several people connected with a terrific group called Erie, E-R-I-E, standing for Erie's Restoration Interests Everywhere. The president of that group is here and will later be an integral part of this program, but I just want to introduce him now, Mark DeCracker. Also, the vice president of Erie, John Groves. And they have really provided the statewide coordination for the flotilla and the entire wetting of the waters program. The local coordination has again been done by a number of groups. One is certainly the Historical Society of the Towanandas, and the gentleman you just heard from before me, Willard Dittmar, is the curator of the Historical Society. And also we're pleased to have here today Jane Penbose, assistant curator of the Historical Society. Our local municipalities in the Towanandas have been an integral part of the effort, and we're happy to have several executives from those municipalities. One from the city of Tonawanda, Mayor Alice Raw. And today, representing Mayor Betty Hoffman of the city of North Tonawanda, who's out of town this morning, is Acting Mayor Dwayne Zlodzinski. And from the town of Tonawanda, Supervisor Ronald Moline. As most of you know, the entire canal structure in New York State is under the jurisdiction of the New York State Department of Transportation. And more specifically, the department has a Canal Planning and Development Board that has really been the planning group and the initiator of so much of the entire effort and program that's going on regarding maintenance and improvement of the canal infrastructure in New York State. And we're happy to have with us this morning the chairman of the Canal Planning and Development Board, Tom Ryan. And I'm going to ask Tom if he doesn't want to just come up and say hello from the Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Senator. On behalf of Transportation Commissioner Frank White, we're happy to be a part of this, and I would echo what the Senator said before about Mark, DeCracker, and John Grove. Should we call them Jesse Hawley and Governor Clinton, I believe. To be historically accurate, our canal expert Tom Crindle tells me that John would have to put on approximately 150 pounds, because I think there's a picture over here that shows the governor. He was reported to be in excess of 300 pounds. But that, just a little historical license isn't bad. The rest of this is great, and they deserve all accommodation they can get. Speaking on behalf of the Canal Board, and Mayor, as you know, we have some illustrious citizens from this area as our members. Jan Harmon, of course, and publisher Joe Armenian. And we would simply call attention to the fact that, as the Senator said, we've done a fair amount of work over the past couple of years to draw attention to the canal system. And indeed, we hope that this program here will draw attention to the excellent legislative initiative of the Canal Development Program that Senator Sheffer and Assemblyman Pelletier and their committees have put forward in a very intelligent, comprehensive, and hard-working manner. They've taken really what were some recommendations of a couple of years ago and turned them into solid legislative accomplishment in a very short period of time. And the first of those initiatives appears on the ballot in November. And you know, there's a lot of controversy when state government goes around the state saying, isn't it wonderful what we did, and you know, we're going to spend all this money to convince you to vote for it. Well, that's not the case. This is all privately funded. It is an excellent public-private kind of a partnership that Governor Cuomo talks about so often. The fact of the matter is, we're hoping that this draws attention to the fact that there is a canal constitutional amendment on the ballot. Far be it from me to persuade anyone to vote one way or the other, but please take a look at it, please be informed, and please make sure you vote on Proclamation number 3 in November. Thank you very much.
I also want to draw your attention just to the east here, to the tugboat Lockport, which has graciously allowed its identity to be changed to the Seneca Chief for today's reenactment. And we're pleased to have the ship's crew, Captain Chip Costello, is the captain out here, he's probably working on the tugboat, and First Mate George Perrin, and deckhand, I just have Richard, probably has a last name, I just don't know. At this point, Tom Ryan mentioned the legislative effort within the Senate and Assembly over a 2 or 3 year period. And that's been a critically important part of the Empire Canal program. And one of the genuine leaders of that effort and the sponsor of the canal amendment in the Assembly is not only the chair of the Assembly Tourism Committee, but the state assemblyman for this area, half of this area, to the north side of the canal, in our own region right here. I take great pride in introducing my good friend and colleague, Assemblyman Joseph Pelletier.
It's really hard to find out where to start, but about 3 years ago when the report came out, it said if we didn't do anything with the canal, it would deteriorate beyond repair within 10 years. At that time, John and I got together. We decided to start work on the constitutional amendment. And I want to give credit to John that we got together, we agreed that it should not be a Democratic proposal or a Republican proposal, but it should be a proposal by both parties. And you'll see that on the legislation, in the Senate you have Republicans and Democrats, and in the Assembly you have both Republicans and Democrats on the bill. Well, what this did was, in a way, kind of hurt us in this sense, and let me explain. The bill was passed the first time in 1990. There were no negative votes in any of the committees. There was no negative votes on the floors of both houses. Then in 1991, when we repassed it, because the constitutional amendment has to be passed twice, once in each legislative session. Again, there was no controversy in the Assembly and no controversy in the Senate. We had 6 public hearings throughout the state, and it generated no controversy. So because of this, since there was no controversy, there was no press. Since there was no press, no one knew what we were doing. So maybe what we should have done was had a Democrat-Republican fight. It would hit the papers in 1990. It would hit the papers in 1991. Maybe John and I should have attacked each other. Maybe him being a senator and me being a member of the Assembly, he being a Republican and me being a Democrat. And maybe we'd have more controversy, and people would have known that this amendment is coming up on November the 5th. But we decided that was not the right approach. Now we're really pleased that the Wedding of the Waters, which is starting today, will culminate in New York City on October 26th, will attempt to convey to the people of New York State that we have in the canal system one of the greatest resources for tourism, the environment, the ecology of the state, a way to raise money to maintain the canal. So the amendment does 3 things. 1, it allows leasing and renting of land. 2, it allows a fee to be charged. And 3, it says that any money that is raised will be dedicated to the canal. It's like what they call a closed box, where the legislature and the governor cannot touch it. So I say to you, Tom Ryan couldn't say it because I guess the governor last year on the bond issue was criticized for having the state promote the bond issue and spend money to promote the bond issue. So Tom can't say that. But I can say it. Please, vote for Proposition number 3. Tell your friends to vote for Proposition number 3. Because we need to develop the canal in a very cautious manner so that we can have situations like this every weekend of the year, starting in Towannada, Lockport, Baldwinville, Utica, Syracuse, Albany, Schenectady, all the way down to New York City, where people can have and use this great resource that we've forgotten about, that no one seems to know about. So this is the event that hopefully will promote Proposition number 3. And I thank you for joining us. And again, I want to thank John Shepard for the great job he did in the Senate to help this day be here with Proposition number 3. Thank you.
I want to continue with some introductions. I haven't seen my colleague and friend John Daly yet this morning. I assume he's not hiding someplace. And Joe is saying Assemblyman Matt Murphy, who has also been involved in tourism and the canals for a very long time. As some of you know, later today, the flotilla will be arriving at Lockport, and perhaps Matt will be there. and Senator Daley in the Senate has been a vital part of our effort, both with the amendment and the wetting of the waters and the entire canal program. You met Assemblyman Pelletier on this south side of the canal, is represented by Assemblyman Robin Schimminger, who couldn't be with us this morning, but his executive assistant, Terry Wakeler, is here for Robin. Thank you for coming, Terry. Now, at this time, I'd like to ask, first of all, Mayor Alice Roth from the city of Tonawanda, and then the Second Ward Alderman and Acting Mayor Dwayne Slazinski, representing Mayor Hoffman of the city of North Tonawanda, to come up to make a presentation to Erie.
Fall into the wrecking ball that is so important here in Tonawanda that we maintain the Erie Canal and enhance it. And we've been very fortunate that the state has provided us with funds for refurbishing our Long Homestead Bridge, and also the money has been appropriate, although we haven't spent it yet, for the Longs Point Park area. And of course, the Historical Society has been very active in maintaining our Long Homestead, which is a real jewel, and it's such an important part of our heritage. And we're so thankful that we have an active Historical Society. We're so proud of you, and no matter what the temperature, you're out and doing your duty, because I know that you love the canal and that you love Tonawanda and its history. So I come to you today very proud of the fact that our Common Council has been the first Common Council in the state to pass a resolution in favor of the legislation that's going to be on the ballot, the proposal number 3. And about a month ago, I presented that proposition, the resolution, the certified resolution, to Senator Sheffer when the urger was here. So I'm proud of our initiative. I've been talking in favor of the proposal wherever I go. I know we met with the Erie County Association of Governments, and they have a resolution that we'll be addressing at our next meeting. The Chamber was very gracious to invite us to have a work session regarding the proposal, and they have passed in support of that the Chamber of Commerce of the Towandas, and I see Natalie and Lynn's here today, and I'm thankful for that. So anything that any of you can do to help promote it, please do so. I see they've got some literature here. I've got tons of it at City Hall. Anybody who wants some, come on down. I'll give you 100 and you can pass them out. And please talk it up, because Tonawanda is the Erie Canal. It's our identity, it's what's unique about us, it's our heritage. And I think it's so important that this legislation gets passed, that all of us should be involved. All of us, as part of our community effort and our community pride, should be out there telling people about this proposal and telling them to vote in favor of it come November 5th. So I don't want to go on and on, but it's something that I find very exciting and very personally important to the Tonawanda community. So without any further comment, I would like to present, this is my very first presentation of a key to the city. So it's a very special moment for me too. We found some, we got a promotion. I said, we need some of those. Betty always has a key to the city. So you are here at a momentous occasion where I'm presenting my very first key of the city to Mark DeCracker of the Erie, and carry it with you all the way to New York with pride, and remember that we're 100% behind your efforts. 100%. Thank you.
And now for Mayor Betty Hoffman of the City of North Tonawanda, Acting Mayor Dwayne Slazinski.
Just to echo on what Mayor Roth said, this Tuesday, being Council President, the City of North Tonawanda has not acted on this resolution, but hearing the people, they're reading the pamphlets and everything else, I will present the resolution to the Mayor and the City Council to support Proposition number 3. Just to say, like Alice said, we have a great waterway here. Unfortunately, our declining industry in the area, we have a great asset for tourism. With this proposal, and with the help of the state of New York, we can continue on. Hopefully, we'll bring industry come back someday. And I'll tell you one thing, with the canal, I've lived here all my life. It's one of the greatest assets in the world. Thank you very much. Now, this is my first presentation. Unfortunately, North Tonawanda can't afford a box. I don't understand that. I have to talk to Betty about this. Mark, on behalf of the City of North Tonawanda, Mayor Hoffman, please accept the meeting. Thank you.
I mentioned earlier that we're also privileged to have the supervisor of the town of Tonawanda here, Supervisor Ron Moline, and I'm going to ask Ron if he'll just come up and say a few words.
Thank you. The Erie Canal system has been very good to western New York, particularly the Towandas. The canal system now needs something in return, some tender loving care that will bring this system back into the state limelight and will enhance water-related opportunities throughout the state of New York, particularly, again, in the Tonawanda. I'm pleased as the supervisor of the town of Tonawanda to let you know that we are working closely as possible to make sure that Proposition 3 gets supported throughout western New York and the state of New York. Mayor Alice Ross brought this to the attention of the Association of Erie County Governments in a very robust manner a few weeks ago, and I can assure you that the Erie County officials who attended that meeting are very much aware of the importance of Proposition 3. I present you with a key to the town of Tonawanda. We don't have one. Our door is always open. We don't need a key. But we certainly appreciate the efforts on behalf of the Tonawanda. Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
An integral part of the whole effort, of course, has been the print and electronic media helping us to both publicize the wedding of the waters and the amendment that's on the ballot November 5th. Many, many people in this region and across the state have been helpful in that. There are doubtless some here this morning. I see Chuck McClemens from the Tonawanda News who wrote a wonderful column yesterday, I think it was, and there have been others, and I want to acknowledge that we genuinely appreciate all of that help. Now, a very special part of the program, I'm going to ask Governor DeWitt Clinton and canal engineer Jesse Hawley to give us a presentation.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here this morning. And what I'd like to do is share a little bit about the early history of the Erie Canal. Back in 1808, while my partner here was languishing in debtor's prison in Canandaigua, he wrote a series of 18 articles under the pen name of Hercules. The article talked about the early possibility of a canal being built from Lake Erie into the Hudson River Valley. The reason for that is that Jesse Hawley was a forward of flour that was being ground in the Minder's mills, and it was extremely expensive to ship, almost $100 a ton or more to ship flour in and about western New York, and this seemed very expensive. He came up with an idea of having a canal dug across New York State. Well, at that time, he wasn't a very good engineer, and he was thinking about digging the canal as a continuous inclined plane, which meant that it would have gone from Lake Erie to the Hudson Valley as a continuous river with no locks whatsoever. In order to have done this, he would have had heights of well over 150 feet up in order to do this. It was impractical. But I read those articles, and I thought that was a great idea. So I sent my friend, Joshua Foreman, to Washington, D.C. and see if we could get some federal aid for this. He went down there and talked to his friend, Thomas Jefferson, who was the President of the United States at the time. Thomas Jefferson had his own private project, a $200,000 canal from the Potomac River to connect the Ohio River in order for shipment and trade to go past the Appalachian Mountains, which was a tremendous barrier at that time. Thomas Jefferson said two things. Number one is the government, I'm talking about the federal government, did not have any money to do this. They could not raise $200,000. And then he ended up by saying to Judge Foreman, he said, first of all, the technology is not available, will not be available for another 100 years. And secondly, it's just a little short of madness. Well, Joshua Foreman came back to New York State and conveyed this kind of information to me. And I said, New Yorkers are made of sterner stuff. We're not a bunch of wimps here. We're going to build a canal on our own. I'm going to go right into the building of the canal. In 1817, on July 4th, which was the anniversary of our country, we started the Erie Canal in Rome, New York. The Erie Canal, at that time, was a project that was thought by many to be a little bit short of madness. But on the other hand, it was also thought to be a project that would make New York State an empire state. It would also build New York City as an international harbor, because all the produce from the interior of the country coming in and coming out would go through Albany into New York Harbor. That was one of the driving forces behind it. Another reason was that a great deal of people wanted to immigrate into the interior of our country, into the Midwest and Western areas, and it was very difficult for families to do that, because in order to do that, they would have had to take the toll roads, and the toll roads at that time, in the early 19th century, were nightmares. They were all rutted up, and it was a terrible, difficult thing to do. When the Erie Canal was put in and finished in 1825, it was almost like the New York State Thruway. It allowed not only manufactured products but raw materials to pass from east to west of New York State, but it also allowed people to immigrate into our interior of the country. The Erie Canal built New York State, but more than that, the Erie Canal was integral in building our nation as we know it today. I'd like to share a couple of things that were written later by historians, and an 18th century man is about to put on 20th century glasses. This was written by Richard M. Wright. The Grand Canal was planned and built by citizens of a struggling community who saw half the proceeds of their saleable surplus product absorbed by freighting costs. They analyzed their need, planned a workable solution, and when no outside help could be obtained, built their own canal, inventing the necessary tools and methods as the work went on, creating as they studied and overcame obstacles the profession of civil engineering, which until then had not existed. The canal was called the eighth wonder of the world. It proved to all doubters that free men under a democratic government could accomplish in a few years an objective no monarchy dared undertake. It attached the whole basin of the Great Lakes to the Atlantic seaboard. It inspired other states and the federal government itself to take a firm hold of their bootstraps and start lifting. Dr. John H. Finley said this about DeWitt Clinton. Not only did he change the face of the earth, but in doing so affected the whole course of civilization and gave New York the opportunity to become the capital of a recreated world. Today in 1991, we have an opportunity to change the whole way the Erie Canal is going to be used. Earlier in history, it was necessary for trade and for people to move back and forth across the state to move commercial goods. Today, the Erie Canal is going to be recreated as a recreational and tourist resource. We are out here today for that reason. Other than that, I don't have much more to say. And we are going to be traveling from Towananda here all through the state, and we're going to be mostly working with the schools along the way with this informational barge that we have here, so that people can come on and see what the Erie Canal is all about. We're going to do our best to promote the Erie Canal as one of the greatest resources, not only in New York State, but in the nation in general. Thank you very much.
I would like to say a few things to thank, first of all, everybody for coming out here today. And I'd also like to acknowledge the people who made this possible. Not only the hardworking volunteers of Erie, who are out 3 nights in a row with their car lights on, which is almost burning. We had a couple cars overheat while we were trying to build this stage. We got the lumber for this on Saturday morning. And I'd like to thank the Wegmans Corporation for donating all the materials to build this structure. This is going to be a long-term structure. We're going to be able to take this up and down the canal and have performances not only by high schools, their jazz bands, their theatrical performances, but also summer programs all along the canal for the children to come out and see. And this is just the beginning of revitalization.
And also, there's a list of corporations along the board there that have helped out with this too. And I'd like everybody to read them because they made it possible. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody again.
It would be hard to overstate the impact that the Erie group and that Mark and John personally have had in this whole effort, and we genuinely appreciate it. Now, for the primary reason why we're here this morning, I'm going to ask Governor Clinton and Mr. Hawley, and also a very special guest, Mr. Richard Garrity, who some of you know, and who is the author of a real resource for anyone researching the history of the canal, called the Canal Boatman. And he not only is the author of that book, but has a personal history of working on the canal and is a true resource for all of us regarding that history, Mr. Richard Garrity. If you three would gather for the ceremonial taking of the water from this west end of the canal to be shift the journey to New York City.
I'd like to say a few things about Mr. Garrity. Last November 17th, in fact, we were fortunate enough. I heard about the story last year on the Apple Grove that Richard has a childhood friend named Glenn Salisbury, and they've been corresponding the last 5 years. They hadn't seen each other, was it 73 years? They separated when the canal closed down, the old Erie Canal. Richard is on the old Erie Canal, he worked with his father. And when the Barge Canal opened, they went their separate ways. We heard about it through the help of Otto Berg at the Apple Grove. We arranged last year for them to meet again. And I have to admit, it was one of the most memorable days of my life to see these two fellows together. And there's a photograph up here of them together. And to share the memories they had were just wonderful. It's a treasure. So.
I'd like to say a few words about the one of my most vivid memories is we were going up the canal with our empty canal boat, and I was fooling around on the stern deck, and I decided to go down on the bow stage. So I walked up the head end of the boat, grabbed the hold of the hatch, slugged my feet in, lost my grip, went backwards into the Erie Canal. And I remember paddling around under the surface from a shadowy figure come up alongside of me, took me under his arm, climbed up the tow path, run down the head of the boats, and dropped on the boats again at the next bridge. Well, I have a lot of memories about the canal, but you can read them along canal.
Was done in 1825, and at the time that it was done, it was one of the grandest celebrations that was ever recorded in New York City. At one point, they had fireworks on the City Hall, and it got so powerfully explosive that people were in tremendous fear that the City Hall of New York was going to burn to the ground in 1825. Luckily, it did not. The jug is now full, and it will be taken to New York Harbor. Yes. Actually, what we're going to do, we'll probably take another bucket. We have a slight leak in this, but we're going to keep it full with original water from this place. I assure you.
Rather than going back to the mic, did you have? Rather than going back to the microphone, let me just say that this concludes our program. We want to invite you to tour the display and to tour the tugboat. And with one further invitation, I'd like to introduce again Mr. Dittmar.
Well, they always say that
If you don't like the weather, wait a minute. But there's an old saying that there is no such thing as bad weather. It's just various kinds of good weather. And you've noticed that this morning. I would like to invite all of you who would be interested to go through the Long Homestead this morning. Jane Penpost, our assistant curator, will take you through, along with her assistants, on a guided tour. This is on the house for free this morning. If you're interested, we will meet over at the Long Homestead after the ceremony.
We want to thank you for coming, and thanks to all of you who've had a part in it. I want to thank my own staff.
This is crazy.
How's everything back there? Riding okay?
Oh, we're coming fine. It's really great.
Anything. I go to blue heron, I think.
I'll tell you, many of the mornings I left Towananda at daylight, and I wish I'd never been there. We didn't used to run nights.
Oh.
It's big, you know. And we used to be working two crews. So if you one crew home, you'd be working all alone.
Oh.
Which we left here tonight, we didn't run the other level nights either. So you get back about 4 o'clock in the morning from up street. And you had to steer all this day. You tie up at Albion or Brockport and say, well, I'm going to get some sleep tonight. Oh, good boy. You sit there by yourself and say, well, maybe I'll go up and have one beer and I'll back, I'll sleep better. Same thing again, back 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's trouble. These bars are open late up here, aren't they?
Yeah, they were. They used to be. Yeah. A lot of good times in these towns, Tonawanda, all of them.
Hawley here. I'm going to Lockport to check on my grave. I hope there hasn't been any vandals over there. It's been a few years since I've been back to check. My friend DeWitt is going to show up there. Actually, he's got a clone coming there in Lockport. We'll take care of it. Okay, we're doing well here. We got Chip Costello as the captain, and moving right along. We're towing that beautiful barge out there. Boy, this canal has sure come a long way from my day. And I actually wanted to put this on a level plate. Was I crazy? You better send me back to debtor's prison. See you later.
Now, how do you fade out?
Just press the stop button, the right one. code in using this area. We couldn't call him. I put the code in and I was able to call him. I'll call a relative down there. So they don't know the real time. They probably do by now. Yeah, I know the weather turned out pretty good. That's why I was quite interested.
see DeWitt Clinton. Hey John, I see your competition here. There he comes. He's skinnier than you are though. ABC.
We only talk to the big wire services. I can't hear you, Rich. No, we can't. They have a DeWitt Clinton here. You can't compete with them. See, now if they had two DeWitt Clintons, we could put a line around.
He's skinnier than you are though.
Yeah, I know. That was Ron DeCracker.
Thank everybody for coming down here today. And first of all, I'd like to have the governor say a few words before we about stop in Lockport here, all the way down to New York City. Governor Clinton, welcome aboard.
Thank you all who voted for me. Actually, today is a great day for Lockport, because it was 166 years ago, October 26, 1825, that the final barrier to the opening of the canal opened, our locks here in Lockport. So we want to thank each and every one of you for coming and sharing with this day of honor and history for your Lockport. And we hope that later on you will join us at the reception at the museum, and you will review the film that we have.
Good, it's been wonderful. Wonderful, the weather's been held out for us. Had a wonderful opening. It was raining all night when we opened the ceremony. There was a lot of water. Yeah, just like it is here. Welcome, reception. Well, we're trying to do several reenactment of the opening of the canal. Not exactly
How you doing? I would have recognized you. Great.
1991.
Oh, God. Well, we may move it, but we're going to put it down and New York Harbor. We're going to have all these in the dumping of the water. So, okay. Oh, I know you are. Right. I'm going happy. Right. Oh, yes. Yeah, I don't know why not. So, okay. They're going to have people down there setting it up so they have a flag all over the place. Then we're going to, the mayor of New York is going to dump the water, which we have on a barrel on the boat here, into the New York Harbor. That's going to be on the 26th, which will be a Saturday. I don't know. Good question. You might want to talk to your legislator.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
I think he skipped out. I don't see
It's a little bit weird. Oh, thank you. This is a authentic 1855 section. This morning I had my digital watch on. How you doing? You're from, I know where you're from. I just got here. Yes. Yes. How you doing? Oh, yeah, this is where it's at.
Yeah.
This is authentic 1825. So is yours. Yeah, right. Yeah, this is great. I don't know. Going east. That's an exact replica of the original barrel of 256 years ago. Yeah. We have another one on the deck of the boat over here that was made New York an empire state, and it will continue being an empire state for as long as we are strong in this state. The new canal, which is going to be, instead of a commercial canal, it's going to be more of a recreational type of facility. We're going to have hiking trails. There's going to be a greater involvement with marinas, also the tourist industry in terms of restaurants and places to stay. And this is going to build a greater increase in employment, and it's going to bring more tourists to New York State and bring the Erie Canal back to where it was back in the 19th century. That's all I have to say. The other thing is that Lockport is a very blessed place because of the 5 locks here. There's a very good possibility that these locks can be restored as they were in the 19th century, and it would be a tremendous tourist attraction for boats to be able to pass through these locks, very much like the Rideau locks up in Ottawa, Canada. This is one thing we would